Welcome, dear ones. Today I want to talk about something that might sound shocking at first. The idea that happiness is a scam, but don't be alarmed, this isn't about giving up on happiness. Instead, it's about seeing through the illusion of superficial happiness and understanding how to rediscover true, lasting joy from within. Let's explore the keys to this together. The concept of happiness has been deeply ingrained in our society as something to be achieved, an external prize that we must constantly strive for. We are taught from an early age that happiness is tied to specific milestones, whether it's getting a good job, finding a romantic partner, owning a home, or accumulating material possessions. Everywhere we look, we are bombarded with messages telling us that happiness is just one more accomplishment away. But what if I told you that this pursuit of happiness, as society defines it, is not only a distraction but also a significant barrier to discovering real, lasting joy? The societal definition of happiness is built on the illusion that we need something outside ourselves to feel fulfilled. This illusion keeps us on a constant treadmill of wanting, striving, and searching. It's like chasing a mirage. Every time you think you've reached it, it vanishes and you're left feeling empty once again. So you set your sights on the next goal, the next possession, the next achievement, hoping that this time you will finally feel content. Yet, this version of happiness is fleeting, conditional, and ultimately unsatisfying. When we tie our happiness to external achievements, we place our sense of self-worth and emotional well-being in the hands of circumstances that we often can't control. A new car, a promotion at work, or even the perfect relationship may bring momentary pleasure. But what happens when the excitement wears off or when life throws challenges your way? If your happiness is based on external factors, it can be easily shaken. The moment something goes wrong or life doesn't go as planned, that happiness crumbles, leaving you feeling unfulfilled once again. The truth is that the societal definition of happiness has a hidden flaw. It's rooted in lack. The underlying message is always, you'll be happy when. You'll be happy when you make more money, when you lose weight, when you find the right partner, or when you achieve some other goal that you currently don't have. This mindset keeps you focused on what's missing from your life, reinforcing the belief that you are somehow incomplete or inadequate as you are. It tells you that happiness is always somewhere in the future, but never in the present moment. This constant focus on lack, on what you don't have, only creates more feelings of dissatisfaction and longing. But real happiness, the kind that comes from within, isn't dependent on external circumstances. It doesn't fluctuate based on what's happening in your life or what you have or don't have. Real happiness is a state of being that arises from a deep sense of inner peace, self-acceptance, and love. It comes from knowing that you are already whole and complete just as you are, and that nothing outside of you can add to or take away from your inherent worth. To let go of society's definition of happiness, the first step is to recognize the illusion for what it is. It's important to become aware of how deeply conditioned we have been to seek happiness outside of ourselves. Once we see this, we can begin to question the beliefs and assumptions that keep us trapped in the endless pursuit of external validation. We can ask ourselves, why do I believe that I need this particular thing or achievement to be happy? What am I really searching for? Often when we dig deeper, we find that we are not really looking for the thing itself, but for the feeling we believe it will bring, whether it's love, security, recognition, or approval. The next step is to shift our focus inward. Instead of constantly looking outside ourselves for happiness, we need to learn how to cultivate it from within. This means developing a deeper relationship with ourselves, one that is based on self-love, acceptance, and gratitude. When we love and accept ourselves unconditionally, we no longer need external validation to feel good about ourselves. We begin to realize that we are already enough, and that true happiness comes from being in alignment with our true nature, rather than trying to meet the expectations of others. Gratitude is a powerful practice for cultivating inner happiness. When we focus on what we already have, instead of what we think is missing, we shift our perspective from lack to abundance. We begin to see the beauty and blessings that are already present in our lives, no matter how simple or small they may seem. This doesn't mean that we stop striving for growth or improvement, but it does mean that we no longer base our happiness on achieving some future goal. We can find joy in the present moment, even as we work toward our dreams. Another important aspect of letting go of society's definition of happiness is embracing the idea that happiness is not a permanent state. Life is full of ups and downs, and it's unrealistic to expect that we will feel happy all the time. Real happiness is not about being in a constant state of euphoria, but about developing a sense of inner peace and resilience that allows us to navigate life's challenges with grace. It's about learning to embrace all of our emotions, even the difficult ones, without judgment or resistance. When we can do this, we free ourselves from the pressure to always be happy, and instead we open ourselves up to the full range of human experience. Letting go of society's definition of happiness is a process, and it requires patience and compassion. It's about unlearning the beliefs and patterns that have been ingrained in us for so long and learning to trust ourselves and our inner wisdom. It's about recognizing that true happiness is not something we need to chase, but something that is already within us, waiting to be discovered. When we stop looking outside for happiness and start turning inward, we find that joy, peace, and fulfillment are not only possible, they are our natural state. Healing is essential for anyone seeking true inner joy. We often search for happiness in external sources, believing that once we have the perfect job, relationship, or lifestyle, we'll finally feel fulfilled. However, what many fail to realize is that lasting happiness cannot be found in the external world until we address what's happening inside. Healing is the foundation of inner joy, as it allows us to release the emotional burdens, traumas, and limiting beliefs that keep us disconnected from our true selves and from a state of genuine happiness. To understand the connection between healing and joy, we must first acknowledge the weight of unhealed wounds. These emotional wounds may stem from childhood experiences, difficult relationships, or societal conditioning, and they often manifest as feelings of unworthiness, shame, guilt, or fear. Over time, these unresolved emotions build walls around our hearts, preventing us from fully experiencing love, peace, and happiness. When we don't address these wounds, they become the silent forces that shape our lives, influencing our thoughts, behaviors, and interactions with others. One of the most common ways that unhealed emotional wounds block joy is through self-sabotage. When we carry unhealed pain, we often unconsciously believe that we are not worthy of happiness. We may find ourselves sabotaging opportunities for love or success because deep down we don't feel deserving. Or we may cling to relationships or situations that are unhealthy because they reflect our unresolved feelings of inadequacy. These patterns prevent us from embracing the joy that is naturally available to us, and they reinforce the cycle of pain and disconnection. True healing requires us to confront and release these old wounds. It is not about suppressing or ignoring our emotions, but about allowing ourselves to feel them fully and then letting them go. This process can be uncomfortable because it often brings to the surface painful memories or feelings we've been avoiding for years. However, by facing these emotions, we free ourselves from their hold. We learn that it is not the emotion itself that causes suffering, but our resistance to it. When we allow ourselves to process and heal from these emotional experiences, we create space within ourselves for joy to emerge. A significant part of the healing process is self-forgiveness. Many of us carry a deep sense of guilt or shame, either for things we have done or for simply being who we are. We may criticize ourselves harshly, believing that we are flawed or unworthy of happiness. But joy cannot coexist with self-judgment. To heal, we must learn to forgive ourselves, to release the past and let go of the guilt that weighs us down. This doesn't mean condoning past mistakes, but rather acknowledging that we did the best we could with the knowledge and resources we had at the time. Self-forgiveness is an act of self-compassion, and it opens the door to joy by allowing us to accept and love ourselves just as we are. In addition to self-forgiveness, healing often involves forgiving others. Holding on to resentment, anger, or bitterness toward those who have hurt us only keeps us trapped in the past. These emotions create energetic blocks that prevent us from experiencing the fullness of joy. When we forgive others, we are not excusing their behavior, but we are choosing to free ourselves from the pain of holding on to it. Forgiveness is a powerful act of healing that releases us from the grip of past hurts and allows us to move forward with a sense of peace and liberation. Healing also requires a willingness to let go of limiting beliefs. Many of us carry deeply ingrained beliefs about ourselves and the world that keep us from experiencing joy. These beliefs may include thoughts like, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to be happy, or life is hard. These mental patterns are often rooted in past experiences, but they do not have to define our present or our future. Healing involves becoming aware of these limiting beliefs and challenging them. We must ask ourselves, is this belief really true? Does it serve me? Often we find that these beliefs are simply outdated stories we've been telling ourselves, and when we release them, we open ourselves up to new possibilities for joy and fulfillment. As we heal, we also reconnect with our true selves. Our unhealed wounds often cause us to live in a state of disconnection, where we are out of touch with our inner wisdom and authenticity. We may base our self-worth on external validation or try to mold ourselves to fit societal expectations, rather than embracing who we truly are. Healing allows us to peel away these layers of conditioning and return to our authentic selves. When we live in alignment with our true nature, we experience a sense of inner peace and joy that is not dependent on external circumstances. Another crucial aspect of healing is learning to embrace all of our emotions, not just the positive ones. Many of us have been taught to suppress or avoid difficult emotions like sadness, anger, or fear. We may believe that happiness means always feeling good, so we resist or deny any feelings that don't align with that ideal. However, true healing and true joy comes from accepting and honoring the full spectrum of our emotional experience. By allowing ourselves to feel and process all of our emotions, we release the resistance that blocks joy. We learn that joy is not the absence of pain, but the presence of peace and acceptance in the midst of whatever we are experiencing. Healing is not a one-time event, but an ongoing journey. It requires patience, compassion, and a commitment to self-care. But as we heal, we begin to experience a profound shift in our lives. We stop looking for happiness outside of ourselves and instead cultivate a deep sense of inner joy that is unshakable, no matter what life brings. This inner joy arises from a place of wholeness, where we are no longer defined by our wounds, but by our capacity to love, forgive, and embrace the fullness of who we are. In the end, healing is the path to inner joy because it allows us to let go of the past and reconnect with the present moment. It frees us from the emotional burdens that keep us stuck in cycles of pain and self-sabotage, and it opens us up to the joy that is our birthright. When we heal, we realize that joy is not something we need to chase, it is already within us, waiting to be discovered. All we need to do is remove the barriers that stand in its way. Happiness begins with self-love, because true, lasting joy cannot be experienced without first cultivating a deep sense of love and acceptance for yourself. Many people spend their lives searching for happiness in external sources, relationships, career success, material possessions, hoping that these things will make them feel complete. However, without self-love, even the most fulfilling external achievements will only bring temporary satisfaction. True happiness comes from within, and it starts with how we treat, think about, and care for ourselves. Self-love is often misunderstood as selfishness or narcissism, but it is far from either. Self-love is not about placing yourself above others or being obsessed with your own image. It is about developing a compassionate and nurturing relationship with yourself, recognizing your inherent worth, and treating yourself with the same kindness and respect that you would offer to someone you love deeply. When we truly love ourselves, we create a foundation of emotional and mental well-being that allows us to experience joy in a way that is not dependent on external circumstances. One of the key reasons self-love is essential for happiness is that it shifts our internal dialogue. Many people live with a harsh inner critic that constantly tells them they are not enough, not smart enough, not attractive enough, not successful enough. This negative self-talk erodes self-esteem and creates feelings of inadequacy and unworthiness. When we don't love ourselves, we are more likely to believe these negative thoughts and allow them to shape our reality. We may seek validation from others to fill the void, hoping that external approval will compensate for our own lack of self-worth. However, this kind of validation is fleeting, and it does little to address the root of the issue. Cultivating self-love means becoming aware of this inner dialogue and consciously replacing negative thoughts with affirming, supportive ones. It involves recognizing when we are being self-critical and choosing to respond with kindness and compassion instead. This practice helps us break free from the cycle of self-judgment and allows us to see ourselves through a lens of love and acceptance. When we love ourselves, we no longer need to rely on external validation to feel worthy, and this frees us to experience happiness from a place of inner peace and confidence. Self-love also means accepting ourselves exactly as we are in this moment, imperfections and all. Society often teaches us that happiness comes from perfection, whether it's having the perfect body, the perfect relationship, or the perfect career. This creates an endless pursuit of unattainable ideals and leaves us feeling dissatisfied when we inevitably fall short. But the truth is that perfection does not exist, and waiting until we meet some arbitrary standard to be happy is a recipe for perpetual discontent. Self-love allows us to let go of these unrealistic expectations and embrace ourselves as we are, with all of our flaws and strengths. It is about recognizing that we are enough, just as we are, without needing to change or prove anything. When we accept ourselves fully, we are able to find happiness in the present moment, rather than waiting for some future version of ourselves to finally be good enough to deserve joy. This doesn't mean we stop striving for growth or improvement, but it does mean that our happiness is not contingent upon reaching a certain goal or becoming someone different. We can pursue our dreams and aspirations from a place of self-love, knowing that we are already whole and worthy, regardless of the outcome. Another important aspect of self-love is self-care. Loving yourself means taking care of your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. It involves listening to your body and giving it the rest, nourishment, and movement it needs. It means setting boundaries and saying no when necessary, honoring your own needs instead of constantly putting others' needs before your own. Many people struggle with guilt when it comes to prioritizing their own well-being, especially if they are used to being caretakers for others. But self-care is not selfish, it is essential. When you take care of yourself, you are better able to show up for others in a healthy and balanced way. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and neglecting your own needs will only lead to burnout, resentment, and unhappiness. Self-care also involves tending to your emotional health. This means allowing yourself to feel and process your emotions rather than suppressing or avoiding them. It means giving yourself permission to grieve, to be angry, to feel joy, without judgment or shame. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that certain emotions are bad or unacceptable, but part of self-love is embracing the full spectrum of your emotional experience. By allowing yourself to feel whatever comes up, you create space for healing and inner peace. When you love yourself, you give yourself the freedom to be human with all the messiness and beauty that entails. Self-love also leads to healthier relationships. When we don't love ourselves, we may seek out relationships that mirror our own lack of self-worth. We might tolerate disrespect, settle for less than we deserve, or become overly dependent on others for our happiness. On the other hand, when we cultivate self-love, we raise our standards for how we allow others to treat us. We no longer need someone else to complete us because we feel whole on our own. This creates the foundation for relationships that are based on mutual respect, love, and support rather than codependency or neediness. Moreover, self-love allows us to be more compassionate and understanding toward others. When we are kind and loving to ourselves, we naturally extend that kindness to those around us. We become less judgmental, more patient, and more empathetic. This creates a ripple effect as our self-love radiates outward, influencing the way we interact with others in the world. Happiness then becomes not just something we experience for ourselves, but something we share with those around us. Ultimately, happiness begins with self-love because it creates the internal conditions for joy to flourish. Without self-love, we may continue to chase happiness through external means, but we will never find the lasting fulfillment we seek. When we love ourselves, we no longer need to look outside for happiness. It flows naturally from within, rooted in the deep sense of worthiness and acceptance we cultivate for ourselves. Self-love is the foundation upon which true happiness is built, and it is something that we can nurture and grow every day through conscious effort, compassion, and care. Letting go of comparison is one of the most powerful steps we can take toward genuine happiness and inner peace. In a world dominated by social media, advertising, and societal standards, it's all too easy to fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others. Whether it's comparing our appearance, career, relationships, or even our personal achievements, this habit creates a cycle of dissatisfaction that undermines our self-worth and prevents us from fully appreciating our own unique path. The first thing to recognize about comparison is that it's rooted in a mindset of scarcity. When we compare ourselves to others, we're essentially saying, I am not enough as I am, or there's not enough success, love, beauty, or happiness for me. This belief fosters a sense of competition where we see others' success as a threat to our own. Instead of being inspired by someone's achievements or finding joy in their happiness, comparison convinces us that their success diminishes our potential or worth. This leads to feelings of envy, insecurity, and inadequacy, which erode our self-esteem. At its core, comparison is based on the illusion that there is a universal standard of success, beauty, or happiness that everyone must meet in order to be worthy. This mindset fails to recognize that each of us is on a unique journey with our own set of challenges, strengths, and life circumstances. No two people are the same, and therefore no two paths should be compared. We all have different starting points, different goals, and different experiences that shape who we are and where we're going. When we compare ourselves to others, we ignore this uniqueness and diminish the value of our own experiences. One of the most damaging aspects of comparison is that it blinds us to our own accomplishments and blessings. When we focus on what others have that we don't, we fail to see the abundance in our own lives. We may downplay our achievements, talents, or qualities because they don't measure up to someone else's. For example, you might feel proud of a promotion at work until you hear that a friend got a higher paying job. at which point your accomplishment suddenly seems less significant. Or you might be content with your home until you see someone else's lavish house on Instagram, making you feel inadequate in comparison. This constant measuring of ourselves against others robs us of the ability to feel gratitude for what we already have. Gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to cultivate happiness, but it's impossible to feel grateful when we're stuck in a mindset of lack. When we compare, we focus on what's missing rather than what's present. Letting go of comparison means shifting our attention away from what others have and instead appreciating our own unique gifts, experiences, and accomplishments. It allows us to reconnect with ourselves and recognize that we are enough, just as we are, without needing to meet any external standard. Comparison also creates a false sense of reality. When we compare ourselves to others, especially in the age of social media, we're often comparing our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. People tend to showcase their best moments online, their vacations, achievements, and happy relationships while hiding their struggles, failures, or insecurities. This curated version of reality makes it seem like everyone else is living a perfect life while we're the only ones dealing with difficulties. The truth is, no one's life is perfect. Everyone faces challenges, and everyone has moments of doubt and insecurity. By letting go of comparison, we free ourselves from the illusion that others have it all together while we don't. Another harmful effect of comparison is that it takes us out of the present moment. When we're constantly comparing ourselves to others, we're not fully engaged in our own lives. We're either looking back at what we perceive as past failures or forward to what we think we need to achieve in order to catch up to others. This prevents us from enjoying the present and being grateful for where we are right now. It keeps us in a state of striving and discontentment, always feeling like we're not enough and that we need to be somewhere else in order to be happy. Letting go of comparison requires a shift in mindset. It starts with recognizing when we're falling into the habit of comparing ourselves to others and consciously choosing a different response. Instead of asking, "Why don't I have what they have?" Or, "Why am I not as successful, attractive, or accomplished?" we can ask, "What am I proud of in my own life?" Or, "What can I be grateful for today?" This simple shift helps us refocus on our own journey and cultivate a sense of contentment and self-acceptance. Another important aspect of letting go of comparison is embracing the idea that we are all on different paths. Just because someone else has achieved something doesn't mean we're behind or failing. Their success doesn't take anything away from our own potential. We can celebrate others' achievements without feeling threatened by them. In fact, by learning to celebrate the success and happiness of others, we create a sense of abundance rather than scarcity. We begin to see that there is more than enough love, success, and happiness to go around, and that someone else's achievements don't diminish our own worth or potential. Self-compassion is also essential in letting go of comparison. When we catch ourselves comparing, it's important to be kind to ourselves rather than judgmental. We can remind ourselves that it's natural to have moments of doubt or insecurity, and that these feelings don't define us. Self-compassion allows us to treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a close friend. It helps us remember that we are worthy of love and happiness regardless of how we compare to others. Ultimately, letting go of comparison is about embracing our own unique journey. It's about recognizing that our worth is not determined by how we measure up to others, but by our own intrinsic value as individuals. When we stop comparing, we free ourselves to live authentically, guided by our own goals, values, and passions. We stop trying to fit into someone else's idea of success and instead create a life that is meaningful and fulfilling to us. Letting go of comparison allows us to reclaim our joy, our self-worth, and our power, enabling us to live fully and confidently in the present moment. Cultivating gratitude for the present moment is a transformative practice that allows us to experience greater peace, contentment, and happiness in our lives. In a world where we are constantly bombarded by messages telling us to strive for more success, more possessions, more experiences, it can be easy to overlook the beauty and abundance that already exists in our lives right now. By shifting our focus away from what we think is missing and toward what we already have, we can create a deep sense of fulfillment and joy in the present moment rather than waiting for some future event or achievement to bring us happiness. Gratitude is not just an emotion, it is a conscious practice that involves recognizing and appreciating the good in our lives, no matter how big or small. It shifts our attention from lack to abundance, from what we don't have to what we do. This shift in perspective is powerful because it helps to reframe our experiences in a positive light, even in challenging times. When we make the decision to cultivate gratitude, we open ourselves up to the possibility of finding joy in every moment, no matter the circumstances. One of the key reasons gratitude is so effective in creating happiness is that it grounds us in the present moment. So much of our dissatisfaction comes from dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. We replay past mistakes or regrets in our minds, or we project ourselves into the future, imagining scenarios that may never come to pass. This tendency to focus on what has been or what might be keeps us disconnected from the only moment that truly matters, the present. Gratitude brings us back to the here and now by encouraging us to appreciate the good things that are happening in our lives at this very moment. When we practice gratitude, we become more mindful of the small, everyday blessings that often go unnoticed. It might be the warmth of the sun on your face, the sound of laughter from a loved one, or the taste of your morning coffee. These simple moments of joy are always available to us, but we must be present enough to notice them. Too often we are so caught up in our to-do lists, our worries, or our long-term goals that we fail to appreciate the beauty and richness of our lives as they are right now. Gratitude helps us to slow down and savor these moments, filling us with a sense of peace and contentment. Another important aspect of cultivating gratitude for the present moment is learning to appreciate the journey rather than focusing solely on the destination. Many of us live with the mindset that happiness will come once we achieve certain goals, whether it's landing a dream job, finding the perfect partner, or reaching a financial milestone. While there is nothing wrong with having goals, this way of thinking can prevent us from enjoying the present. If we are always waiting for the next achievement to bring us happiness, we miss out on the joy that can be found in the process of getting there. Gratitude shifts our focus from the outcome to the experience itself. It allows us to appreciate the steps we are taking, the lessons we are learning, and the growth we are experiencing along the way. Instead of seeing the present as something to get through on the way to our goals, we begin to see it as a valuable and meaningful part of our journey. This shift in perspective can reduce stress and anxiety, as we no longer feel the need to rush through life in pursuit of some future happiness. Instead, we can find joy and fulfillment in the present moment, knowing that we are exactly where we need to be. Gratitude also helps us cultivate resilience in the face of challenges. Life is full of ups and downs, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed or discouraged when things don't go as planned. However, even in difficult times, there is always something to be grateful for. It might be the support of a loved one, the strength to keep going, or the lessons learned through adversity. When we practice gratitude, we train our minds to look for the good in every situation, even when it's not immediately obvious. This doesn't mean ignoring or suppressing difficult emotions, but rather acknowledging that even in hardship, there are still things to appreciate. By focusing on what is working in our lives rather than what is going wrong, we build emotional resilience. Gratitude helps us shift our perspective from one of victimhood to one of empowerment. We begin to see that we have the ability to navigate life's challenges with grace and a sense of purpose, even when circumstances are difficult. This shift in mindset can make all the difference in how we approach adversity, allowing us to face it with greater strength and optimism. When we practice gratitude, we remind ourselves that we have the inner resources to overcome challenges, and that there is always something to learn and grow from, no matter the situation. Gratitude also plays a powerful role in improving our relationships. When we focus on the good in the people around us, we naturally cultivate more positive, loving, and harmonious connections. It's easy to take the people in our lives for granted, especially those we see or interact with on a daily basis. We may become so accustomed to their presence that we forget to acknowledge and appreciate the ways they contribute to our lives. Practicing gratitude helps us shift our focus away from minor annoyances or perceived shortcomings and instead recognize the kindness, support, and love that others bring into our lives. Expressing gratitude toward others, whether it's through a heartfelt thank you, a kind gesture, or simply by being more present with them, deepens our bonds and fosters greater emotional intimacy. Gratitude reminds us of the importance of the people in our lives and helps us appreciate them for who they are, rather than focusing on what we wish they would do differently. In turn, this fosters a sense of mutual appreciation and strengthens our connections, bringing more joy and fulfillment into our relationships. Additionally, practicing gratitude for the present moment helps us release the need for control. So much of our anxiety and dissatisfaction stems from our desire to control outcomes or force things to go a certain way. When things don't go as expected, we may become frustrated, disappointed, or stressed. However, when we cultivate gratitude, we learn to trust the process of life and let go of the need for everything to be perfect. Gratitude teaches us to surrender to the flow of life, understanding that things unfold in their own time and way. By appreciating what is, rather than fixating on how we think things should be, we allow ourselves to relax into the present moment and experience a greater sense of ease. This doesn't mean we give up on our dreams or aspirations, but it does mean that we stop resisting the present in favor of some imagined future. We begin to trust that life is supporting us in ways we may not always understand, and that there is beauty and meaning in the here and now. Gratitude is also a practice of self-compassion. Often we are our own harshest critics, constantly focusing on our perceived flaws, mistakes, or what we haven't yet achieved. This self-criticism keeps us trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction and prevents us from experiencing true happiness. By practicing gratitude, we can shift our focus away from what we think is wrong with us and toward what is right. We can learn to appreciate ourselves for who we are in this moment, rather than constantly striving to be someone different or better. When we practice gratitude toward ourselves, we cultivate a sense of inner peace and acceptance. We begin to recognize our strengths, our efforts, and our inherent worth, which allows us to feel more confident and content in our own skin. This self-compassion is key to experiencing happiness because it frees us from the constant pressure to improve or prove ourselves. We can simply be, knowing that we are enough just as we are. In summary, cultivating gratitude for the present moment is a powerful practice that shifts our focus from lack to abundance, from dissatisfaction to contentment. It grounds us in the here and now, allowing us to appreciate the beauty and richness of our lives as they are. Gratitude helps us find joy in the journey, build resilience in the face of challenges, strengthen our relationships, release the need for control, and cultivate self-compassion. By embracing gratitude, we open ourselves up to the possibility of true, lasting happiness, not based on external circumstances or future achievements, but rooted in the deep appreciation for the present moment. Happiness is a choice, not a destination. This idea may seem simplistic, especially in a world that often equates happiness with external achievements, acquiring wealth, landing the perfect job, or finding the ideal partner. We are conditioned to believe that happiness lies in the future, just beyond the next goal or milestone. However, this way of thinking sets us up for constant dissatisfaction. If happiness is always something we are striving for, it becomes elusive, something we never quite reach. The truth is, happiness is not something to be chased or achieved. It is a state of being that we can choose moment by moment, regardless of our circumstances. Choosing happiness means taking responsibility for our own well-being. It's about recognizing that external conditions, while influential, do not determine our happiness. Many people live under the assumption that once they reach a certain point in life, they will finally be happy. They think, once I get that promotion, I'll be happy, or once I lose weight, I'll feel good about myself, but happiness is not something that magically appears when we check off items on our to-do list. While achieving goals can bring satisfaction, the feeling is often fleeting. We quickly move on to the next thing, believing that the next accomplishment will be the one that brings lasting happiness. The problem with this approach is that it places happiness outside of ourselves, making it dependent on circumstances that are often beyond our control. It also puts happiness in the future rather than in the present. This mindset creates a perpetual cycle of striving and yearning, where we are never truly content with what we have or where we are. When happiness is seen as a destination, we are constantly seeking something outside ourselves, rather than realizing that we have the power to create happiness in the present moment. Choosing happiness means shifting our focus from external achievements to internal states of being. It involves cultivating a mindset that allows us to find joy and contentment in the here and now, regardless of what is happening in our external world. This shift in perspective requires us to recognize that happiness is not a byproduct of success, wealth, or status, but rather an intentional choice we make about how we perceive and respond to life's events. One of the most powerful ways to choose happiness is by practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness involves being fully present in the moment, without judgment or attachment to outcomes. When we are mindful, we are not dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. We are simply experiencing life as it unfolds with a sense of acceptance and curiosity. This practice helps us recognize that happiness is not something to be found in the future, but something we can experience right now. By being present, we begin to notice the small, everyday moments of joy that often go unnoticed. It might be the warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of birds chirping, or the feeling of connection with a loved one. These moments, while seemingly insignificant, are the building blocks of happiness. When we are mindful, we are able to fully appreciate these experiences rather than rushing through them on our way to the next thing. This simple act of paying attention to the present moment can bring a deep sense of contentment and peace, reminding us that happiness is available to us right now if we choose to see it. Another way to choose happiness is by cultivating gratitude. Gratitude is the practice of focusing on the good in our lives, rather than fixating on what is lacking. When we make a conscious effort to appreciate what we have, we shift our mindset from one of scarcity to one of abundance. This shift is powerful because it allows us to see that we already have many reasons to be happy, regardless of our external circumstances. Gratitude helps us break the habit of waiting for happiness to arrive in the future, and instead reminds us to find joy in the present. Gratitude also helps us reframe challenges and setbacks. When things don't go as planned, it's easy to become discouraged or frustrated. However, choosing happiness means recognizing that even in difficult times, there is always something to be grateful for. It might be the support of a loved one, the lesson learned from a failure, or the strength to keep going. By focusing on what is going well, rather than what is going wrong, we create a sense of resilience and optimism that allows us to maintain our happiness, even in the face of adversity. Choosing happiness also means letting go of the need for perfection. Many people believe that they cannot be happy until everything in their life is perfect, whether that means having the perfect job, the perfect relationship, or the perfect appearance. This pursuit of perfection creates a constant sense of inadequacy, as we are always measuring ourselves against impossible standards. The truth is, perfection is an illusion, and waiting for it will only delay our happiness. Happiness is not about having a perfect life, it's about finding peace and contentment in the life we have. It's about embracing our imperfections, our struggles, and our failures, and recognizing that they are a natural part of the human experience. When we let go of the need for perfection, we free ourselves from the pressure to constantly improve or prove ourselves, and we create space for happiness to flourish in the present moment. Self-compassion is another key aspect of choosing happiness. Often we are our own worst critics, constantly judging ourselves for not being good enough or not achieving enough. This self-judgment keeps us stuck in a cycle of dissatisfaction, as we are never able to fully appreciate or accept ourselves. Choosing happiness means being kind and compassionate toward ourselves, recognizing that we are worthy of love and happiness just as we are. When we practice self-compassion, we stop waiting for external validation or approval to feel good about ourselves. We recognize that our worth is not determined by our achievements or by how we compare to others. Instead, we learn to love and accept ourselves, flaws and all. This self-acceptance is crucial for happiness because it allows us to feel content with who we are rather than constantly striving to be someone different. Ultimately, choosing happiness is an ongoing practice. It's not about reaching a point where we are happy all the time, but rather about making a conscious decision each day to focus on the positive, to be present, to practice gratitude, and to treat ourselves with kindness. Happiness is not something we achieve once and for all. It is a choice we make over and over again in each moment. By choosing happiness, we take control of our own well-being and create a life filled with joy, peace, and fulfillment, regardless of our external circumstances.